how crazy was it to be here for a 4-year span, but serve under 3 different GMs? There it is.
It was pretty unique.
Yeah.
A quick story too. Like there was one episode when Billy was GM, and we were flying, and I like he lost oxygen or something, and he fell in the plane, and he hit his head on the side, and all I could think of, I can't go through another GM. I mean, we had the doctors and everything up there like this, and he was fine, which was great. But I'm going, another GM? What's going on here?
But he was fine, though. He made it out all right. But
yeah, no, he was fine. I just think that maybe the sudden altitude or something caught him in a different way, and he just sort of fainted. But,
during that stretch, a lot of crazy things happened over that time, but the weirdest had to be the first true, to today at least, expansion draft. Were you involved in those conversations leading up to the 2017 Vegas expansion?
Was I involved? Well, Chuck was the GM back then, yep. And he would tell me the dilemma that we had, and what he, I didn't know in the end what he was going to do, but he knew we had 5 really good defensemen, and that was the core of our team, and that we didn't have very much money on the cap. So, I mean, to stop them from, say, taking Matt Dumba, and I may be wrong on this, I mean, we had to offer up Alex Tuck, who had played only 1 year in the minors, and so they wouldn't take a Matt Dumba, who at that time was, still pretty young, and he was a real up-and-comer, and I think it was the next year he had 12 goals in December until he tore his labrum, and I think it became a little more difficult. He missed the rest of the year, and became a little more difficult for him. But, I mean, when you think you had Suter, Spurgeon, Brodin, Scandella, and Dumba, and you were allowed to keep all of them, and then the way we got we traded Scandella for I think Pominville at that time, but it gave us enough money on the cap to pick up Eric Stahl, which was a great pickup. So it was like as bad as it looked, because you lose out on Alex Tuck. I think Chuck did as good a job as he could in that moment in saving keeping the same team that he had.
Like the 2 names that will be forever in lore here are Parise and Suter, for good and for, I'm sure, bad if you're a fan, right? Like the moment of hope that they gave that when they signed and picked Minnesota to be their long-term destination, and then the exit, which they're still paying for with the dead cap hits. Like, you were around those guys. Like, do you understand the reasoning for the buyout, or do you see anything that would have made them the team in a better spot in the culture in the room by having those guys maybe not there?
Well, I mean, I think it wasn't any conversations that I'd had with anybody, but I think they were looking for younger leadership, and they had just, Eriksson Ek was starting to make his presence aware, and Spurgeon was starting to be great, and they wanted different leadership guys in there. So I think they wanted just to say, okay, we got these guys for, they were supposed to be 13 years. I don't know how many years they bought them out after 8 or 9, but I mean, and they wanted just a different culture of leadership there, because they moved Mikko out, and they got rid of all the 3 guys that were the leaders on the team. And I don't know if Bill had talked to, he didn't talk to me about it, but I mean, I don't know if he had talked to, at that time, whether it was Dean or any of the players, and they thought that this was just a bad fit and we have to make the move now. And I mean, I'm sure, the ownership knew about it and everything else, and they were okay with it. But I mean, I think they made a great draft that year. I think, or the year before, with Paul Fenton drafted Boldy, and they got Rossi that year. And I mean, those guys are going to be, solid for years to come. And now that they've got Faber, I mean, they got the good young nucleus, I think, of what Billy Guerin was looking for when he made that change.
How do you see the Wild now? Like, obviously, when you fire a coach during the year, that there's maybe some underachieving or some frustration there. But you mentioned the young core. Like, where do you see the Wild right now? Like, this kind of who they probably should be while the buyouts are still in play. Like, missing $14.7 million. Should they be more of a playoff team? Like,
well, I mean, I think it always boils down to goaltending. I don't care who you are and what team you're with. I mean, if your goaltending is good, and I mean, you're going to usually be in the playoffs. I mean, you look at, I didn't have the luxury of having Kaprizov, but I mean, you got one of the best players in the world there, and you've got, I think Eriksson Ek has proven he may not be score 40, but every year he surprises you and scores more and plays in every situation, and he's tougher than nails. And I mean, I love the guy. I mean, quite frankly, as far as the player goes, Ryan Hartman has proven that he was, I played him like Chicago did and Nashville did and Philadelphia did, third or fourth line right winger. Now he became a second line center. I mean, out of necessity, and he's still there, and he's having a good career. I mean, Zuccarello, I don't know, what is he, 36 next year or something? I mean, but he can still, and he didn't score as often as he would have liked to this year, but his chemistry with Kaprizov is still fabulous. Next year you'll have Spurgeon back with Faber and Brodin, and I think the defense will be better overall. So I mean, I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team, but I do think that they've got great character, on that team, and I think they'll be fighting for the playoffs all the time. And that's they just got some good nucleus. Even Marcus Foligno is a great leader and a great team guy. I mean, and you got him on the. If you can use him on the third line, then I think you've got the nucleus of a good top nine forwards. So I mean, it's I don't see them taking a step back. I think they took a step back this year, but I think once the coaching change was made, Boldy became the player that you expect him to be. And so, I mean, I think they'll be right up there next year. I don't know how much money they have. I haven't paid attention to that, whether they can get one or two good free agents to mix in with what they've got, because they're young and they've got experience. And so, I mean, I expect them to be a tough out next year.
Where's Kaprizov in terms of one of the top players in the world in your mind? Like, I got a chance to watch him now 2 years in a row, where I'm like, that wow factor of, I think he's a top 10 player, top 10, 12 player in the world.
And if you take away the top 20, the 25 games that he was horrible at the beginning of the year, and he still got 40 plus goals. So, I mean, I got to believe he's a top 10 player. I think there's going to be a time, and it may be as early as next year, where he's going to get 50 plus, and if like their power play is still solid, and they still don't have they used Brock on the point a lot, and maybe that's going to be his spot. It wasn't that spot until Spurgeon got hurt. But I mean, they got the nucleus. I mean, Ek in front of the net, Kaprizov, Zuccarello. I mean, they got a great Boldy in the bumper. They can have one of the best power plays in the league. So I don't understand, or I don't see why it shouldn't be where they're one of the better power plays. And Kaprizov is not a 50 goal, if he stays healthy, is not a 50 plus goal guy next year.
I mean, don't draw up the exact X's and O's, but like talking about that group and the strengths of the different players, like what would Bruce Boudreau look at and say, like, here's what I really want to do to try and get the best out of those guys on the power play?
Well, I mean, here's what you do is just think of the five guys. Think, first of all, I mean, Zuccarello's not a shooter. He's a passer. Okay. Kaprizov, I would probably have on the half wall, Zuccarello on his forehand, so he could give Boldy the puck in the middle. And Ek is as good a front man. He takes shit kicking and just keeps coming back at you. You know, like, I mean, he's the perfect forward, and he never complains. He's in better shape than anybody. So I mean, you got all the things there. Like when I was in Vancouver, and you had Bo Horvat in the middle, and you had JT Miller on the forehand, and he could come down with a great shot, or he could fake it and give it to Bo. And Bo had 31 goals before I got let go, and before he got traded. So I mean, I see that like that because Boldy's that kind of shooter there, and so I mean, you just see the makings of a really good power play. And Kaprizov, when he gets it, if you think of McDavid, and McDavid never stays in one place. If Kaprizov has the puck, he could go behind the net and around the net and around and find open guys. And the minute you take your eye off Zuccarello, he'll shoot the puck. A little bit like if you think of Kucherov in Tampa, who, you know, I mean, he's got Point, Hedman, Stamkos and he's a playmaker, and the puck, it runs through him. So I mean, but if you take your eye off him, he's shooting the puck in the net. And I see Minnesota having a power play like that.